Hello, I am Dr. Phil Busey. I will present for identification Set 3 containing 16 species of native Florida plants. Species are listed alphabetically by their scientific names. Two have involved changes. One, what we used to call Tetrazygia bicolor, should now be called Myconia bicolor due to a transfer to a different genus, and this is according to the Plant Atlas of Florida. However, I recognize as the common name West Indian lilac, which is more common in the landscape trade. Secondly, the species Zamia pumila had been misapplied, and the correct name for what we normally call Kunti is Zamia integrifolia. All 16 species were seen today by Miami-Dade College Kendall campus students of native plant identification class. Not all photographs were taken today, and not all were taken at that location. The location is the Larry and Penny Thompson Park, a part of Miami-Dade County Parks system, and this is the Pine Rockland habitat. That's one of some 45 habitats of terrestrial plant groupings recognized by the Florida Natural Areas Inventory. Two of the species that we had seen in a previous set are the slash pine, Pinus eliatii, whose trunks you see here, and the saw palmetto, or Serenoa repens, the understory palm. That's the dominant palm at this location. There are other species that we saw that are also indicators of this type of habitat. It's a fire ecosystem. Rock pineland, if it's not burned every 15 to 25 years, turns into a different type of natural community. First species, which is a characteristic species of rock pineland or Pine Rockland, is Anemia adiantifolia, maidenhair pineland fern. It's an attractive short fern, no more than maybe 2 feet tall at the tallest, and it has these kind of obtuse rounded divisions of its fronds. There again is the maidenhair pineland fern. We saw today Angadenia berteroi, pineland golden trumpet. It is a member of the Aposinaceae or the dogbane family. As such, it has opposite leaves and it has a milky latex that is reportedly bad to get into the eyes. The leaves are revolute, which means that the margins are enrolled. It's very attractive to see this from a distance because these bright yellow flowers are about as big as a quarter. We saw today Cassytha filiformis love vine. This is not a very friendly plant, at least to other plants, because it's parasitic. There are these long filamentous stems. And here you see that some of the filaments are grasping around a small oak shrub, which we'll be seeing a little bit later. And there are, in the lower right, haustoria, or places where the love vine is penetrating the leaves of the oak to get nutrients. It may be partly photosynthetic because some individuals of the love vine are more green than others, but primarily it's getting its nutrients and its water from other plants. There's the fruit of the love vine. If you ever mistake this for dodder, which is more of a temperate parasitic plant, just take a look at the fruits. Surprisingly, this species is in the same family with avocado. Unlike saw palmetto, which grows at the same location, Coccothrinax argentata, Florida silver palm, is very distinctive because it has a silvery underside. The petioles are not armed the way saw palmetto is, and Coccothrinax argentata has but a single trunk. It doesn't creep the way saw palmetto does. This, however, can get confused with another silvery undersided palm called Thrinax mauricii, sometimes called silver thatch palm. The distinction between those two is reportedly as to whether the petiole bases are split, as it would be on the Thrinax mauricii, or not, as they would be on Coccothrinax argentata, Florida silver palm. Here I have used my hand to turn over a frond and to show you how silvery it is on the underside, but not on the upper side. And there you see a group of palms. In the back are the saw palmettos, and they are somewhat bluish in overall appearance, but in no case do you see that flash of the undersides. So the only Florida silver palms in this picture that I can see are three, one in the foreground, one right behind it, and then one in the far right. The others are saw palmettos. Coccothrinax argentata, Florida silver palm, although it is a fairly short palm, it does form a trunk. And this in the center is a specimen at Fairchild Tropical Botanic Garden. If you were to see it in a natural habitat, you would discover that it has no thorns on the petioles the way that saw palmetto does, and it does not creep the way saw palmetto does. That is Dodonaea viscosa varnishleaf. It has been reportedly to have two-winged fruits, but most of the individuals that I've seen have three-winged fruits. The leaves are alternate and usually elongate, or they can vary in size and shape. There's one with fairly long, oblanceolate or almost linear leaves. This individual of Dodonaea viscosa varnishleaf has leaves that are wider. They are oblong, in contrast to the narrower types that we saw before, and it has very showy winged fruits. Guettarda scabra, rough velvetseed, has leaves that are very stiff and sandpapery, and as a member of the coffee family, not surprisingly, the leaves are opposite. The fruit is very appropriately named velvetseed because it is very finely pubescent. It looks fuzzy. Guettarda scabra. And there's a young plant showing you that how the leaves are definitely opposite and simple. Lantana involucrata, slender button sage, is a very good landscape plant. It's a native species, which is a great improvement over the exotic Lantana camara. And unlike most of the other native Lantana species, this one makes a tall shrub. The others are almost ground cover size. There is Lantana involucrata growing just south of the registrar's building at Miami-Dade College Kendall campus. And there's a plant back to Larry and Penny Thompson Park, kind of mixing in with other plants. Liatris gracilis, slender gayfeather, is the first species that we've seen in the sunflower family, the Asteraceae. Flowers of the Asteraceae are clustered in tight heads. And so what you think of by looking at it from a distance as a flower is actually a group of flowers. And they are subtended, or they have underneath them structures that are called phyllaries. And this species is distinguished from another native Liatris at the same site that has more obtuse or truncated phyllaries. There again is Liatris gracilis, slender, gay feather, probably the most colorful standout plant that we saw today. Plant that we tried not to touch is Metopium toxiferum, poisonwood. It is reportedly more dangerous for people allergic to members of this family than even poison ivy. It is reported that even a small encounter with the leaves and the skin can be quite irritating and cause quite a rash. You'll notice that it has alternate pinnately compound leaves with typically about 5 leaflets, with one terminal leaflet and 2 to 3 pairs on the rachis. So we try very hard not to touch that. It grows near the ground, it grows tall, and it's easy if you're walking in the woods where it's growing to encounter it without noticing it until maybe a week later. There's a tall growing Metopium toxiferum, and this is alongside the, not far back from the beach or the strand vegetation in Crandon Park. This Metopium toxiferum is emerging a new leaf, and it shows a very attractive bronze color. It's probably not one that people will go looking for to plant in their landscape, but if you already have it growing and you can be watchful of where it is and not encounter it too closely, it probably provides some habitat value for certain species and would be worth considering keeping. Myconia bicolor, which used to be called Tetrazygia bicolor, apparently, according to a website, NorthAmericanTrees.com, gets its specific epithet, the bicolor, from the difference in the coloration of the upper and lower leaf surface, the upper being dark green and the other whitish. We should see part of a lower leaf in a minute. The flowers are attractive. What makes this species really unique, as with other members of the family, is the leaf structure. Here are the fruits of West Indian lilac. The leaves have 5 long arching parallel primary veins. Secondary veins crisscross as almost like a ladder. You can see in between how the leaves are opposite, so it's opposite, simple, lanceolate leaves, and you can see a little bit of the underside of a leaf on the right, and you can see it's definitely a lighter color. Myconia bicolor. We saw today also Myrsini cubana. This is sometimes incorrectly put in the genus Rapania. Myrsini cubana, common name Myrsini, is pretty unique in having flowers and therefore fruits on the ends of the twigs. The leaves are revolute. They inroll around the edges, as another species that we saw earlier. And they're fleshy, very shiny, and That is Mersini. It has these little red fruits and pretty bright green colored leaves. And there it is in its natural habitat at Larry and Penny Thompson Park. Probably any expert in natural communities, if we gave them a list of 4 or 5 or 6 species that we saw today, could probably tell you where we were. So if you're interested in forensic botany, that could be a clue to where plant materials and sample fragments have come from. So that's interesting because some are very unique to this particular habitat, the natural community, Pine Rockland. Others may occur in other communities, but the assemblage of several of these species together pretty well nails it down to Pine Rockland. We saw today Passiflora suberosa. It has a very small, attractive flower, no more than about 3/4 of an inch across. It's not showy the way many other species of Passiflora or passion vine are showy. But it is still interesting, and it's a good feeder of wildlife. There are the fruits of the corky stem passion flower, including one that's quite mature, has turned dark purple, turning black. It's a vine, and you can see left of center 2 of the tendrils that are wrapping around and trying to support this vine on other plants. We saw several of these today, and some were deeply parted, lobed in 3 lobes, and others were not. And so it's quite variable in its leaf. Here's an example of a homeowner growing corky stem passion flower in their patio, probably to attract butterflies and larvae. And there is a larva caterpillar eating corky stem passion flower. We saw today Pityopsis graminifolia, narrow-leaf silkgrass. This is not a photograph that I took today, but it is one that I took up near Sebring in a kind of a roadside area. What's most interesting about this is not just the fact that it has a showy yellow flower, but up close you can see that the leaves are grassy looking and they're silvery in appearance. So it seems that the name silkgrass is very appropriate, even though it is in the sunflower family with that compound flower head, Pityopsis. We saw a lot of Quercus pumila today running oak. You would know this is an oak, although it's obviously not a live oak, because of the very leathery leaf, the fact that the leaves are lighter colored underneath, and most importantly, you would see the acorns. There are many species of Quercus oak in the world, and as far as I know, most, if not all of them, have some type of acorn. These are much smaller than the acorns on live oak. Rhus copallinum winged sumac is so called because, as you can see on the blow-up on the right, the rachises, which are the axes of the pinnate leaves, have little horizontal extensions. They're not perfectly round as rachises normally are, but they have little extensions which makes them winged. Furthermore, the fruit is a beautiful deep burgundy, the winged sumac. And when it's under any kind of environmental stress, the leaves turn a bright red. So that too is attractive. And last is Zamia integrifolia, formerly called Zamia pumila, or the coontie. And this is quite favored in the landscape because it is a native plant species that fits in really well as a ground cover. It's not a flowering plant at all. There it is growing in a landscaped area. It's quite toxic. The seeds are the most toxic part of the plant. They have several chemicals, so it is both mutagenic, carcinogenic, and teratogenic. So, oh, I forgot, don't eat it. These are the seeds. The plant itself, the coontie, can be used to make a starch. There it is, the seeds and the cone. But the tubers need to be carefully washed for a long period of time to remove the toxic properties. And there is a chrysalis of the Atala butterfly, one of the favorite reasons that people grow this plant, because it's an interesting and attractive dark butterfly with bright spots, and it's pretty rare. It was rediscovered a number of years ago, so people who grow Zamia integrifolia coontie soon discover they have a difficult ecological challenge to keep enough food available for the caterpillars and the developing butterflies. Well, thank you.